Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Motivate with Coach Camp. I, of course, am your host, Coach Camp, and we are down here. Look, this is the unlawfully lavish studios of SRP. They're so awesome. I dropped my pen straight out the box. Look, this place is amazing. I'm down here with Mr. Derek Michaud, and we have a great episode set up for you guys today. Today's guest is somebody that I come across on social media. We've kind of gotten familiar with each other over time, and when he started telling me a little bit about his story, I asked him one day, I was like, hey, would you mind coming on? Would you mind coming on and sharing? Because this topic for this episode is very important. This affects lots of people across America. I've got some statistics here we're gonna go over. But my guest today is Mr. Wes Joyner from Hernando, Mississippi, and he's gonna come on. He's gonna share with you his personal story, and I think you'll kind of get a pretty good gist of how things go and what we're here to talk about today. So I just want to welcome you at this time. How are you doing, Mr. Joyner?
I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you having me on here today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thanks for coming out. Yeah, man. Look, your story is one that I think is going to relate to a lot of people. All right. So I try to hit all types of topics. Whenever I come into studio, I think to myself, all right, so if I were a listening audience member, what kind of things might I want to be brought to the table and discussed and then ultimately enlightened on? Because not everybody experiences what everybody else could experience, which is kind of the premise here, is I could bring other people in and share their story. And so we're going to get to that. Before we get there, though, I want to know a little bit about you. So tell us where you're from, family members, stuff like that.
All right. Yeah. I grew up here in the DeSoto County area. I came to South Haven in 1984.
Okay.
Started out second grade, Greenbrook Elementary School.
Greenbrook, yeah.
So started out over there and went all the way through South Haven High School. Actually graduated on my second year. I think we talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about it. Sometimes you got to hit a reset, just do a whole second senior year. Why not? Ferris Bueller was top of the mountain in that movie. I wanted to be top of the mountain. So
hey, I loved it, and they loved me, and why not?
Sure, why not, man? Hit a redo. And so after high school, did you go into college?
I did not.
Okay.
I decided that I wanted to work and make money.
Yeah. What'd you do?
Well, at the time, I went to FedEx. I was working in the hub.
Yeah.
Moving packages. So actually it was UPS and then FedEx. I started at UPS. I wasn't at UPS very long. Then I went to FedEx.
Okay.
Just decided to jump ship and.
Did you have any family members in that?
I did not.
Yeah.
I did not. It was just something that, they came to the school and UPS came to the school and talked to
do some recruiting.
The class. Yeah,
so it works.
Yeah.
Man,
yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah.
You have a family, brothers, sisters?
Yeah. My mom and dad are here also in Hernando. I got a sister named April. She lives in Texas. Of course she grew up here in South Haven. We've all got the same friend groups and
how much,
still pretty close.
What's the age difference there?
Okay, so she's a year younger than me.
Okay,
so I want to say like 15 months, but don't quote me on that.
Oh, so y'all pretty close then.
Yeah, real close.
And getting into FedEx and was that something at that time you were thinking this is going to be my career?
No, not really.
Okay.
It was just a job.
Yeah,
I wanted to see where it went, where it was going to lead me, and I just decided to run with it, and I did it for about a year.
All right, so we're leading up to the point, but I want to lay some foundation, of course, and kind of get an idea about, what your mindset was, where you were, and how you were growing as a person. So how long did you stay there?
FedEx, I was there for about a year.
Okay. And then from there, where did you go?
Let's see. From there, I went to Snap-on Tools in Olive Branch. Was just working, as an order picker. My dad was working there. He was one of the maintenance guys there. And I just decided I was going to go to work there, and so I did, and they got me into working 6 and 7 days a week, and I was like, whoa, man, this is real life,
all of a sudden, it's like, this is a union job. When's my 15-minute break?
Yeah, it's like, man, this is hot in here, Every time I pull an order, I'm dumping water on my head, trying to stay cool. I had a incident where I lost a friend at the time, and that's hard on a.
How old were you at that time?
Let's see, I was probably 19.
Oh, so
19 or
young,
20.
Young guy, yeah.
So, I tried to go use the phone, and they decided that they didn't want me to use the phone. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to use the phone. I just lost someone. So that was that. That was it. I asked my dad, I said, is it going to be bad if I jump ship and leave here? And is it going to give you a bad name? He said, no, son, you need to go. So
yeah. So at 19, you check out of that. And I know that in our pre-conversation, you were talking about how you went to Northwest. So how old were you when you went to Northwest?
Believe it or not, I worked all the way up through that time. I got married and had 3 children.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So out of high school, straight to working, then married and 3 kids.
Yep. I was 25 when I got married.
Oh.
Had my first child. So then after my 3rd child, I was like, wait a minute, this whole money thing I'm not making as much as I thought I was going to be making.
Where were you working at that time? So
let's see. At that time, I was working at Baptist DeSoto Hospital. I was in the security department at Baptist DeSoto. So I started going to school at Northwest in their heating and air program because I'm a mechanical type individual, hands-on guy. So I went there and did that and made the top grade in my class, So
what year
pretty
was that?
Different from high school to then because, I was ready for it.
Sure.
So I was 33 when I did that. So that was, 2008, 2009?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So some time had passed.
Yeah.
So from high school to then, 3 kids and working in security, and you're thinking, look, we got to have a change.
Yep.
We need to up the game just a little bit. How far apart are your kids?
Let's see. My son and my first daughter are 2 years and 9 months apart, and then my last child is right a year apart. I don't know exactly 15 months, whatever. I'm not 100% sure on that, but
yeah.
Yeah, when they were. Well, I know we're leading up to my story more so, but they were 7, 4, and 3 when I came into my next step. Yeah. Whenever I wound up injured and wound up being in a wheelchair.
All right. So before we get to just that point, though, so you're working and you're thinking you need a life change, and you have young kids then.
Oh yeah.
So they were really young when you made the decision to go back to school.
Yes.
At 33, and I've got to be honest with you, you're sitting in front of me, and I'm thinking, you're telling me these stories, and you're 30, and you look like you're about 40. How did that happen?
I got a compliment subbing this week. I'm a substitute teacher for the DeSoto County School System.
Okay.
And one of the kids came up to me and said, I thought you were 28. I was like, can you give me a hug, please?
28. Hey, look, I'm sitting here giving you 40, and he's like, 28. I like it, dude.
Yeah.
So you've definitely stayed young with 3 kids. That can make you old quickly. Just saying, I've got 4 nephews.
Well, you notice
or 3 nephews and a niece, and I get around my brother's kids, and I'm like, man, you guys. A lot of energy right there.
No hair.
Yeah. So you make this change. You decide, all right, I'm going to go get some education, and I'm going to get a whole new career path going. Pretty bold and brave. I'm going to say both. And you said you were 33. So that's like, you're on the other side of, I've got to kind of make some decisions. You're like, I've really got to make some decisions. You got 3 kids and stuff. And so you go to school, and how long is the heat and air school?
It's a 2-year associate program.
Okay.
You can do it in two different ways. You can do the certificate or the associate program.
That's what I was wondering. If there's like a certificate program. Yeah.
Yeah. I already had a little bit of college there where I went just a little to get my feet wet and decided that, I'm not sure about this. So, but I had that. So I was like, I've already got that much. So I might as well just add on to it and then make it a degree. So I went for the degree side of it instead of the certificate part.
Okay. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Actually, whenever I started into paramedicine, becoming a paramedic, we could just get a certificate. You didn't have to get a degree, but I went on through and finished up my degree as well. So it's kind of the same concept, which is what I was wondering. So you were saying that you just got a job and it was going to be over near the airport. It's going to be a heat and air job.
Right. It was a good one.
Yeah. And so you're going to step into this, and obviously life takes a turn. And this is where our story kind of starts to begin. I wanted to know a little bit about where Wes had come from before we get to the incident, of course, so that we kind of have a better idea about, where you were headed in life and what all was involved. So 2010, what were you doing in the moment whenever the accident took place?
Okay, so I was working at an electrical company, and I was just going to transition over into the heat and air company. I was just at a business in South Haven. I was working for the electrical company, and I was going to just transition over into the air company. They knew that I wasn't staying. I was just there helping out just for, job money. And So I was going up the ladder to get on the roof of this business, and just with the snap of my fingers, I put my right foot on the roof. I was flat on my back on the concrete from about 20 foot in the air. So I don't know, ladder, if it broke, kicked sideways, I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to blink. So it was just that quick.
And did it knock you out?
It did.
Yeah.
For how long? I don't know.
Sure.
I don't think it was very long because people came running from all over the business there. And I happened to be working there with a good friend of mine who had paramedic training in the military.
Okay.
So he kept me from, making any major moves, trying to get up or anything of that sort.
So you had assistance pretty much almost instantaneously.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's where I call God putting one foot in front of the other. Because if you'll see as we talk, he was constantly putting the right people in the right place at the right time all the time.
Wow.
So
you fall, and in the moment when you fell, did you know you were hurt? Because you said you were unconscious, but you start to come out of that. Did you know that you had messed up something?
I did.
Yeah.
As far as not being able to move my legs or toes or things like that, I wasn't that far into it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew I had fell. I knew I was hurt, and I knew they wouldn't let me move. They were, don't even try to sit up.
How old were you at that time?
I was 33 still.
So you still 33 year. Okay. So,
right.
So when you fall and you hit and knocked unconscious briefly, I'm assuming they call 911.
Oh yes.
Ambulance comes.
Right.
They pick you up. And at what point was it that you start to think to yourself, this may not be just a fall? Because it may have taken some time. I'm assuming, the injury sometimes shows up and then you don't really realize the significance of it. What was it when you get to the hospital that they start to come out and explain to you?
It was before then.
It was before then.
Yeah. I was laying on the concrete, and the paramedic and the EMT that showed up to pick me up on the scene were from my church choir at church.
Oh, wow.
So we knew each other. So the first thing he said, it was Craig. He said, Wes, move your toes. Thought I moved my toes. I had a short pause there. I was like, okay. Yeah. He's like, okay, Wes, move your toes. Short little pause. Okay. He's like, all right, move your toes. I said, I just moved. By that time I was a little on the aggravated side. I just moved my toes.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. And at that point I knew something wasn't right, because he's like, I think he's got a spinal cord injury. We need to get him,
Mm-hmm. Was that the only thing at that time that was showing up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because they had to get me to the hospital and see what was going on.
But like you didn't have a skull fracture, arm fracture, back was the only thing injured at that time?
Well,
okay.
We didn't know it at the time.
Oh, I see.
But I completely shattered out in T10 and T12.
Wow.
I fractured C5 in my neck and brain bleed and skull fracture in 3 different places.
Wow. 20-foot fall.
Right.
In that moment, your whole life is altered.
Completely.
Just that quick. So can you explain to me in the days coming? So you get to the hospital. Clearly, the injuries start to surface. They start to come in with the information. What is that? What is that moment processing that? Because I could think about what it would be like for me, but I haven't lived through that. You did. So in that moment, what's going on? What are you thinking?
My first thought was, Wes, you need to pray.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get one-on-one conversation with God and tell him, hey man, if this is the route you want me to take, I'm there, man. Just.
Was that like the next day you had this?
Yeah.
Kind of epiphany?
I said a prayer right there in the bed that I knew that I had nothing to worry about.
Mm-hmm. That
I knew that I was going to be taken care of, because it says in like Matthew 6, like verse 25, 26 about, the birds of the air and the creatures on the ground. And then it talks about, God taking care of them and feeding them, that, they don't stow away in barns and, so he takes care of them. While we're much more important than them. So why is he not going to take care of me? So I was like, I'm in. I mean, if this is the way that you want it to be, then that's okay with me.
Wow, that's amazing. Instantly having clarity and calm is not the normal reaction, I would say, for most people. For me, I would think about, disbelief, possible anger. I mean, these are emotions that might be solicited. And then people could fall into depression, hopelessness, feelings of sadness, and all of those things are normal. I'm not saying that the cycle doesn't come around. It's not like you stay clean and clear and this is my mindset and that's the way life is, because I'll be honest with you. Like I had said many times starting out, I chose positivity as my platform because I knew it was not an easy platform to have. It's so easy to get negative on things. This is just the easier path. You think about life in general, everything worth having takes work, takes effort, takes focus, takes intentionality. If you want to be healthy and you want to eat healthy, you have to be focused on that. If you don't really care and you just go through the motions, it's really easy to not be healthy. It's just one example, but that's life in general, is that it will kind of compound. That's how you and I actually kind of became connected on social media. Was I was putting out the messages of stuff and you started kind of communicating to me because you were saying how some of my, quick clips when I was doing the camps, chats on the farms things, you really enjoyed that and it was helping positivity, right? So keep a mindset.
Very much positive.
And that for me hearing your story now, knowing that day one, you realized that this was bigger than you and that you couldn't do this alone and calling on God's peace, that's huge. I think that's part of the story here that I need others to hear too, is that whenever you find yourself, you wake up and your entire life changed that quick on a dime. There are decisions that you're going to have to make, but in the end, having a focus in the right direction is going to make those decisions that much better. So what was it like with your family in that moment?
It was a little chaotic. I mean, calls started going around. My wife finds out. She, of course, rushes to the hospital. She's a nurse, so, I mean, it's not out of the ordinary for her to see some things, but it's, it happened to her husband. So
it's different when it's your family.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, but again, God put people out in front of me, just like I talked about before. Mm-hmm. While I was at the med, one of the guys in my Sunday school class run the information systems department. So he was able to help anybody in my family or friends or whoever that came to visit me with anything that they needed while I was at the med downtown.
That's resources like that. And that's kind of part of what I had down here too was, it's so important to have a team, have people in your corner to be able to support you. It sounds like your support system was instantaneous.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I had a very, very good support system and still do.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I don't think that it ever ends. You don't have to have a traumatic incident to have feelings of, like you can't handle the next thing coming your way. It's always great to have people in your corner to be able to, prop you up, keep you going. But what was it like for your kids? Because they were pretty young.
Yeah, my kids were 7, 4, and 3, so they were kind of shocked. I mean, and they didn't really 100% know what was going on. My youngest was 3, so even now she's 16 and she doesn't remember me ever not being in a wheelchair.
Yeah, that's that is true. That I'm just relating a story. We had a guy, Pat Hardison, that was on our show. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He's a firefighter from Senatobia, and he had severe burns across his face to the point that he actually ended up with the first full face transplant on Earth, and he had 2 kids after the incident. I'm just relating this because it is true. Kids know what they grow up with, and they were scared for him to get the face transplant because they had only known Dad after the injury. So that was Dad. And so for the same thing with you, I guess young enough that they didn't have memories of you not having the accident. So,
well, my son and my middle child, they remember.
They did remember.
They do remember because my son was 7. So, we were doing the soccer thing and football thing. So this was in the middle of football season. So here, I'm at practice one day, the next day I'm not. So,
yeah.
And then my middle child, my youngest was, daddy's little girl, and she was the one that, hey, give me some sugar. She would run completely across the house to get to me to give me some sugar.
Yeah.
So, it affected them more because they had to grow up in a hurry. Because here it is. Once I wound up coming home, they're trying to help Dad. Because Dad's having a hard time helping himself.
Yeah. How long was it before you were able to come back to the house?
Okay, so I went to the Shepherd Center in Atlanta, Georgia, from the med, and then I was the Shepherd Center 2.5 months before I wound up getting back home.
Were there several surgeries? I don't really know how that. Did they do stuff like that? Or?
It was one surgery. They did a what they call a spinal fusion from T9 to L3.
Oh.
So pretty good long rods holding my spine together to hold me upright.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the neck fracture, it wound up being okay. It healed itself. I wore a C-collar for 6 weeks.
Mm.
And then the brain bleed and skull fractures, they wind up healing themselves and not really causing too much problem. I didn't really have a traumatic brain injury. I mean, I had a little short-term memory loss.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell me something and I'll remember it tomorrow, but I may not remember it 5 minutes from now.
Yeah.
But that's not too bad.
Yeah.
But it healed itself.
So no major anything other than the spine. You come back home and then there's a healing process. How long was it until you were able to start kind of getting around a little bit in a wheelchair?
Well, I started out when I left the med and went straight to the Shepherd Center. I was in a wheelchair that first week.
So they start working with you straight out the box.
Yes, very quickly. They don't want you to lay around. They want you to continue to be mobile and be flexible so that you can get around and do the things you need to do. But as far as like once I got home and back to, real life, it took me, I wasn't able to drive until about 10 months later, but it took me about a year to get back to what they considered a new normal.
Yeah.
Just, hey, it's all you now. Yeah. It was about a year.
Yeah. And so obviously there's going to be a transition there. And what was those first 2 years like?
It was a whole lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
Because each and everything, just like we were talking about when we came in, based on where I park and how I get in the building and whether or not there's a big slope or, it just anything and everything you can think of. I mean, calling ahead or driving ahead to go see places to make sure they're accessible enough for me to get in, regardless of ADA, because not everything is up to those.
Yeah, and that on this after the break, we're going to hit on a lot of that because that's something this is the part. So right now, what I want people to know is that, if you're going through some tough times, there's a better way. And obviously having positive mindset, having people in your corner, those things matter a lot. On the backside of our break, what we're going to talk about is those things people don't really recognize. Because I think that you and I recently spoke about this. There's things that you don't pay attention to if it doesn't affect you. And I don't think that that's anything abnormal. I think that's probably pretty normal, right? So we're going to talk about that. But at the house, you come home and you're having to adjust to stuff. You mentioned to me prior to the show starting that you guys were in the process of moving and you had a new build. Did you have someone that could be able to like give you some ideas about, hey, look, you're going to need this, or you should consider that? Or was all of that new construction that you guys went into, was that something that you just had to kind of figure out?
So the Shepherd Center was a lot more than just physical rehab. I mean, it went into occupational therapy and just overall life.
Mm-hmm.
So we had some ideas from the Shepherd Center for things that have come up over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as figuring things out, it was another trial and error, getting on YouTube, and finding out what other people was good for other people, getting on Facebook, finding out on different spinal cord injury sites what is working for someone else. Because there's not a lot of that stuff out there.
That's what I was wondering, was the resources there. So that's interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of resources. You just have to look for them.
Yeah, when you went to the house, and I mean, you got to start the construction. I know me personally, so I've built a couple houses. I start into it, and I have this idea about where I want things to be and how I want them to do. And then all of a sudden, as the construction starts, I'm like, wait a minute, that ain't going to work there, and I have to change this or that. I imagine there was a lot of that going into this.
Well, I didn't come straight home and go straight to the house that I left.
Yeah.
I came here to Hernando and stayed with my parents.
Okay.
So they had their bathroom remodeled while I was gone so that I would have somewhere to come back to.
Mm.
But
how long did you stay with them?
It was cut a little short. When I got there, it wasn't 100% done.
Oh.
So here we go, trial and error again. So Here I am in a computer chair, and they're rolling me down the hallway, rolling me into the bathroom, and I'm having to transfer off of that computer chair onto a bathroom chair in the shower. And you don't want to talk about scary, you know?
Yeah.
Because I had no trunk control at the time. I didn't have the abs and things that I do now where I can bend over and grab stuff and pick it up off the floor. I was working from nothing from my, belly button up. And there was no muscles built up there yet to hold me up. Yeah. So I constantly felt like if I wasn't in my wheelchair that I was going to fall. So, it was a very scary situation. And at the time...
You shared something about that with the shower thing, so I want you to talk about that.
Well, when I was worried about falling out of my wheelchair, because when I left the Shepherd Center, I wasn't strong enough that if I did fall out of my chair, I wasn't strong enough to get back in it yet. So I had to go, once I got home, I had to meet up with a trainer at the DeSoto Athletic Club that I spent a couple years with on couple days a week to help me, build my upper body strength up, build my core strength up, so that I'd be able to do different things.
Yeah, you said whenever you had told your wife that you were coming on a podcast, world-renowned Coach Camp podcast, that she was worried about you. You said, well, there's nothing to worry about, because if you could sit in a chair that is not flush with the bathtub, and you're rocking back and forth trying to shower and not falling, then there's nothing else to be afraid of at that point.
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it really does paint a picture, because it's things like that. Okay. So the average person that's never had to go down this road, they don't know about those trials and tribulations. And then for those that are going through it, maybe they're just now going through it. Maybe somebody right now is watching this, who knows where, and they are just now at the beginning stages of this. This is why I wanted your story to come in and be told, because it's been 13 years. Is that right?
13
since
years,
the incident.
Correct.
And here you are, a living testament. We're going to talk about some of the things that you're able to do. Now there are organizations that work with individuals, and we're going to even talk about a nonprofit idea that you have that I think is phenomenal, and I hope it gets some legs and takes off on it. I don't know if that's the right approach, but I think it should be. I think it should be something that we can all rally around. Whenever it's something that's a good cause, I think it's a great idea, and there should be some way, some path to making that happen.
If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. God will put it in front of us.
Amen, brother. Tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk about all these things, and we're going to discuss some of those things we were talking about, where it's there are considerations that people should have, and I'm going to share one of those that you brought up, and I'm like, wow, that's brilliant. Absolutely. All right, so you guys tune in. We will be right back.
A great opportunity awaits. The Motivate with Coach Camp podcast is now in its second season, and we are excited to say that we have listeners all over the United States and in 19 countries. If you have a company and you're interested in some very affordable advertising, while at the same time supporting a great cause, please go to motivatewithcoachcamp.com and fill out that sponsorship page, and we'll get right back to you. You can support the podcast through donations on Venmo at Motivate with Coach Camp. Thank you to all the listeners and guests who have blessed this podcast with their engagement and involvement.
All right, welcome back, everybody, from the break. As you know, we are here with Mr. Wes Joyner, and we are talking about life-altering traumatic injuries that they don't have to be the end of the road for you. My friend here today is sharing about his life-changing moment where he became a paraplegic. And there have been a lot of things take place over the last 13 years, a lot of trial and errors. He shared some of that in the first part. And now we're going to talk about a few of the life modifications that took place. And it's kind of amazing, actually. I don't think about, I could not have imagined how expensive custom-built wheelchairs would be. And you mentioned this during the break, is the fact that wheelchair is $6,000.
Correct.
And it's custom built to you.
It is. It's measured to my dimensions. So it makes it easier for me to get around. Mm-hmm. So when it's built directly to my specifications. So like when I go in different places, or, like ADA doorway going into a public facility or wherever, it's like 32 inches wide. So they want me to stay slim and trim enough that I can fit into those doorways. Yeah.
And you were talking about your truck modifications. So you purchased the truck. Workers' Comp was able to fit it with all the different add-ons. Whatever.
Modifications.
Right, you said that word, and it just lost it all of a sudden. So modifications to it, and I just happened to walk up on you when you had pulled in. And that thing's cool, man. The seat kind of, it swings out of the truck. And then you have like the little arm in the back that's able to pull the wheelchair out and bring it around to you. I mean, it's freedom.
Me and the kids call that the Transformer.
The Transformer. Okay.
That's Optimus Prime.
I got you. It was cool, man. And look, it's those kinds of things, though, that give a person their freedom again. And, you know, people, I think in general, they crave routine. They want to be able to get up and go about their day in a certain way and with certain expectations that they'll be able to meet. And that routine gives you fulfillment. It leads to a happier, healthier life in general. So whenever you feel like you have something you can go and do yourself, that is what people want. And that's what they're giving you. And that's what, having those opportunities to be able to share this with other people, if they're finding themselves in this position right now, there are things out there to help you. And one of the things that you had put on a post recently on Facebook was mentioning if you park your truck in a driveway and the hitch is hanging out into the sidewalk area, to pay attention to that, because a person on a wheelchair doesn't have the option of just walking around that. They may end up having to actually go out into the street to get around and keep going. And as soon as I saw the post, I'm like, that makes perfect sense. I would have never noticed that. And so there are a lot of things like that. And you said that there's a difference between ADA capable and wheelchair access or something. So explain some of that.
Handicap accessible and wheelchair accessible.
Okay, yeah. Explain some of that, because I know my listeners out there, I'm sure that I'm not the only one that's like, I had no idea there was a difference in this.
Right. So like when I go different places out in public and they say that it's handicap accessible, then a lot of times when you get in there, handicap accessibility, all it really requires is bars. So bars that you can grab a hold of. Well, if it's not wheelchair accessible and you go in a bathroom in public, you go in and it's only handicap accessible, then the stall's not wide enough for me to get into with my wheelchair. So that leaves me the option of not being able to use the restroom in this facility, and now I have to leave. Yeah. So, but if it's wheelchair accessible, then it's got the great big open wide stall with the big door, and it's easy to get in and out of, and I can turn around inside the stall. So it's 100% different. Even just planning ahead and going on vacation and different things, you got to pay attention to the handicap accessibility and wheelchair accessibility.
In the hotels, probably restaurants.
Hotels. We've been on beach vacations, and my wife was on the phone with the condo people and had one of the like HOA type individual ladies on in the restroom measuring the shower stall doors and different things like that, measuring how high the bed is off the floor, because if it's too high, you think about, if you're sitting in a chair trying to get inside my truck, a full-size pickup truck, sitting in a kitchen chair and using nothing but your arms.
That's incredibly too difficult.
Yeah. I mean, people didn't think about it. Neither did I until I had to.
Yeah.
So that's a long way up.
I mean, just like you mentioned in scouting out parking spaces prior to getting to a place, obviously you can't always adjust it. I mean, like you can't always pre-plan every single thing. So when you are made aware of a certain circumstance, is that something that you ever bring attention to?
I try to. I don't make a scene out of the situation, but I might, if somebody pulls up, a lot of times what'll happen is I'll pull up and, they got the van accessible spots with the blue lines on the side, and then they got just plain handicap spots with no blue lines next to it. Sometimes people will pull up and they'll pull up about half sideways in those van accessible spots. And when they do that, then I can't get out of my truck. Yeah. So I'm stuck. Or if I go in the grocery store and come back out and somebody pulls in that blue line and parks because they think they need that spot to get close to the door, then I come out, I can't get in my truck. I have to wait till whoever it is gets back to their vehicle before I can leave, or have a friend there that just backs my truck out so that I can get into it.
Yeah. I think that honestly, I think that there is a lot of value here too when you come across a situation, if it's at a restaurant, facility, whatever, that you bring that to the attention. Because I think, honestly, for myself, I wouldn't have known some of these things. I know other people wouldn't necessarily. And that's the kind of thing, if I were a business or an organization, I would want to modify that to make it compatible for all. And so moving forward on that, whenever you have developed this lifestyle now, because I know that you're a very active person. You are a substitute teacher at the high school, or is it all schools?
Well, anywhere in DeSoto County, but I tend to stick on this end of the county.
Okay. Is it high school, junior high? Whatever?
I usually only do middle school and high school.
Okay. All right.
I try to stick more to the high school.
So teaching, I know you go hunting.
I love to hunt.
Part of a hunting organization.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, because that's something that there's modifications that have to be made.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I do the Arca Butler Physically Challenge Hunt every year, and it's all voluntary. The Corps of Engineers puts it on, and they do a draw, and it allows guys like us in wheelchairs, to be able to have help and getting put out in the woods and having the opportunity to have the privilege of being able to hunt.
Sure.
So. And then I've gotten involved with another organization that I just got involved with about a year ago called Hope Outdoors. And Hope Outdoors is a 501c3 that it's all voluntary, and it's all sponsored through sponsors. And they help physically and mentally challenge handicapped individuals like myself and get us out and hunt. So we deer hunt, turkey hunt.
I was going to ask you, it's just deer hunting.
It's
anything.
Deer hunting, turkey hunting, fishing. They're going to try to do some camping, but everything's donated. The landowners are all voluntary. They allow us to come hunt on their property. And the guides are just voluntary. They come it's fixing to be turkey season. I just filled out, a couple of applications to hunt. And we just started a chapter of Hope Outdoors here in Northwest Mississippi. It covers Tate County, DeSoto County, and Marshall County.
So is it just Mississippi based?
No.
Is it nationwide?
It is nationwide.
Wow. Okay.
But as of right now, there's 19 chapters of Hope Outdoors, and it goes up into Indiana, around to Missouri, Arkansas, down through Mississippi.
Okay. That's awesome.
Alabama. I think it started in Alabama.
So do you stick to Mississippi, or is this something that you guys can interchange? You can go to different chapters in that.
So far, I've been to 2 hunts in Mississippi.
Okay.
But I've been to 1 in Tennessee, and it was in Spring Hill, Tennessee, up around Jackson, Tennessee, Lexington, Tennessee, up in that area. But the organization, when they get these donations, I was able to go do that hunt, stay in a hotel, and be fed. They paid for the hotel, and that's awesome. Fed us. So it makes it easier for somebody like myself to be able to afford to go.
Yeah. Because
we can just show up, and all we had to do was basically get there, and everything is covered. Because we were talking about in the break that the wheelchair I'm sitting in is a manual wheelchair, but it's measured to my specifications, but it's very costly. A $6,000 wheelchair.
You don't want to take that out in the woods.
Just to push myself.
Yeah, I mean, are you able to take that out in the woods?
What other choice do I have?
Well, I mean, I know if they had something different. I didn't know.
I'm not walking.
$6,000. They're like, can y'all put some nice pavement down or something?
Okay, so I have a chair that I go out in the woods with.
Okay,
I can use this chair. Yes.
Yeah.
I try not to.
Yeah.
Because I don't like to get muddy on Saturday.
That's
and
what
show up to Sunday school with mud all over me on Sunday.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, it's called an action track chair, and it has 2 car batteries, 2 12-volt batteries under the seat, and it has tracks on it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Snowmobile track.
Yeah.
So it looks like a little tank. And it's 0 turn, and it has a joystick on it, just like a power wheelchair.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't know what they would have, but in my mind, I'm sitting here picturing this, and I'm thinking you need some kind of all-terrain, type wheelchair to be able to get out into the woods. Because, I mean, I know it's in the woods. There's lots of stuff in the woods. You got to get over, stumps and everything else. So it's just.
That's the other thing too. Hope Outdoors has several of those wheelchairs.
Okay.
That people have either the organization has bought from the donations, or people have donated. So whenever some of these guys show up that didn't have the workman's comp like I did, or, you know, the money that I was able to use to buy that chair outright, they don't have that money to do that, then Hope Outdoors has those chairs, and they allow them to use them.
That's awesome.
So
yeah, was there other hobbies that you had prior to the accident?
yes, I'm a hot rod guy.
Oh,
So I have a 1968 Camaro. So
nice.
yeah.
Do you still keep that hobby going?
I do. I have hand controls in it, and I try to go to shows when I can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll grab a buddy and say, "Hey, let's go," so he can put my wheelchair in the back seat and go with me, or whatever. You know, if I'm nice, I might let him drive, and I'll get in the passenger seat. But yeah, that was the thing. For me and my dad. My dad's a '67 Nova guy, and I'm a '68 Camaro guy. So I was always into that growing up. Hot rods were my thing. So
You know, I feel like that. I say this, but I don't know, and that's why I have you here, right? So we can talk about it. But I feel like today's society is there's a no limits idea to people to be able to do whatever it is that they feel like that was their heart's desire. This year is the year of the Olympics. And I'm full disclosure, I personally, man, I always look forward to the Paralympics. There is nothing more inspirational to me than seeing individuals who were giving a different path in life, something difficult to overcome. And they're so inspiring because it never stopped them. They had to alter how they did it, but they didn't stop doing the things that they loved. And so do you see yourself as an inspiration to others?
most of the time I don't. I'm pretty humble. I mean, I don't do anything that I do without God allowing me to do it. I mean, anything and everything I do is through Him. But as far as myself being an inspiration, most of the time I don't feel that way. I just feel like I'm living.
Yeah.
And I just feel like that I'm just trying to, like you said, sometimes you get in a slump, but
Sure.
Sometimes, it won't be nothing for everybody to be gone from the house, and I'll just let out a good cry and move on. But I don't really see myself as an inspiration. I just feel like that I'm trying to be a light for Christ. I just want positivity around me at all times. I keep positive podcasts like these in front of me. I keep positive quotes in front of me, Bible verses, anything I can do to keep my mind off of things that I can't change.
Yeah. I feel like that traumatic incidents are a part of a person's life, but they don't have to define that person's life. And individuals that choose to move forward, they do become an inspiration. And I think that that's really what I want you to take away from this, if nothing else, is that whether or not it's an intentional move from you, you're providing hope for somebody out there right now that's paying attention, that's listening to this podcast. We are going to give I don't know what other things that stick out to you right now, because we really didn't discuss it that much, but things that people may not recognize out in society that's like, hey, maybe I should pay more attention to this or whatever. And one of those things, obviously, parking, whenever you're parking next to a van accessible area, to not get over those lines. Obviously not parking out over a sidewalk. And you're instilling hope, you're instilling motivation, and you're educating. And that doesn't surprise me because you're a substitute teacher. So what else do you have that might pop out right now? We didn't really pre-plan this, that you would want to share with other people to think about and say, hey, look, when I'm out and about, I want to try to pay attention to this or that because I understand how that could affect somebody that's in a wheelchair.
Well, one thing I would say is, don't use the negative on any situation that you're in, because you can take that situation and make the most of it. And you can use that situation to help others when they get in the same situation that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
I've had several situations over the past couple of years where I'm sorry if I'm not answering the question all the way, but
you're fine. No,
we can work our way back to it.
Take it on the path you want.
My buddy in college. Okay. So we were in college together. We were partnered up in class together, and when we graduated, it wasn't that long. A couple months later, I was hurting in a wheelchair. Well, he was a young fella. He wasn't even married yet. And then he got married, and his wife, within the first, I don't remember if it was several months or a year or so after their marriage, wound up in a car accident, was paralyzed from the waist down, or from the chest down. So I was able to take the knowledge that I had from my injury and what all I had went through going to the Shepherd Center, and I was able to advocate that to him. I was like, man, you have got to get her there.
Mm-hmm.
That place is such a God-given place.
Mm-hmm.
It is so positive. The atmosphere there is so positive, and everyone is willing to help you any way they can. So, back to the question. Repeat the question.
No, the question was just if there was other ideas or things that come to mind
Okay.
that people might want to pay attention to when they're out and about that, they would never think that this would affect somebody. But what you just shared was very impactful. And the honest, true story is, and now I'm deviating from the question at hand, it gives you more time to think about it, right? But the truth is, that is the point. I think a lot of times God puts us in positions and he knows that we're capable. And he knows that our focus will be in the right spot. And then when we come through that, the way that we make that a complete product is we turn around and we help the next person coming through that. And so sharing our story will obviously impact the next person that comes along those same, whatever those footsteps are in this case. Obviously, any type of injury to the back, traumatic. You now have a story that you can relate to. I couldn't tell people about how to bounce back from a back injury. You can. And that's gonna really hit home for some. And it's really going to give them encouragement. So did you have some ideas? Gave you some more time to think on that.
I did. And the thoughts that come to mind, when I was at the Shepherd Center, they took us to the mall just so we could figure out what to look for, because we'd never been in this situation. So when you get to the mall, not only where do you park, but where are the ramps to get you up the sidewalk so you're not trying to jump the curb?
Mm-hmm.
Where are the elevators once you get inside? Because when you go from one floor to the next, how you get there. So
right.
We found out pretty quickly that anywhere you go, sometimes there's elevators on each end, but a lot of times when you go to the mall, the elevator's in the center and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So, trying to map yourself out so that you're not killing yourself, pushing yourself in a wheelchair to get from point A to point B.
Right.
But I mean, the stronger you get, the easier it gets, but then pushing on carpet. We had the floors in our house done in a not tile, but it looked like wood.
Oh, like manufactured wood.
Yeah. So, the lay down stuff. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
So our whole house is done that way, so that it's easier for me to get around in a wheelchair.
Sure.
So all the concrete upgrades into my house, so I don't have any ramps.
Mm-hmm.
So anywhere else you go, you have to go up a ramp to get in the building.
Mm-hmm.
But looking out for things like that, they took us, like out in public. We left the building at the Shepherd Center and pushed ourselves down the street a couple of blocks down and went to Chick-fil-A. So we went to Chick-fil-A. We had to order. How are you going to get that order in your lap? How are you going to get it to the table? Different things like that. Of course, a lot of it, most people are willing to help us do those types of things, but what if you're out by yourself, or what if, I have 3 kids. What if my wife is busy trying to help my 3 kids?
Right.
Yeah. So I've been very fortunate with the family that I've been dealt to be able to help me. I'm not always, the chipper guy that I am here on the mic.
Yeah.
Like I said, sometimes I might, wait till everybody's gone and cry it out and then move on. But
peaks and valleys, that's going to be a part of everybody's life. Well, that's a good segue to lead into our final discussion piece, which is the idea that you presented to me about an organization that could be developed, hopefully. I don't know. But this is why we mention it on the air, right?
Right. Your
idea. Do you want to share your idea so I don't mess up the idea? Because it's very possible I can mess up the idea.
Yeah,
share it with me.
I don't mind. So it's been, I don't know how long ago it's been, a few months back. A person from my past had posted on social media that her father was going to get out of the hospital. And once he got out of the hospital and they got him in the car, when they got home, how are we going to get him in the house? So me being a big dude that I am, I'm not a small fella. I got to thinking, hey, she's going to need help. I might need help in the future. Not everybody has a pocket full of money to pay somebody in an ambulance to carry you to your house and put you in the bed.
Mm-hmm.
So what could we do to start something, whether it be nonprofit, I don't know. But to get together, whether it be a Christian group of men or whether it be, elders at the church, as far as like deacons or who could we get to get around the liability issues of helping people, to be able to get in their house. Like, hey, I've got the phone number. Let's call these two guys here so they can be there at that time, showing up and just helping them in the house, help them get situated before they leave, just had an aunt that lost, part of her foot. And that was one of the things was, how is she going to get in the house if she can't walk? Because my other aunt, she's not going to be able to pick her up and carry her in the house. And I'm a big guy. So, I mean, if that, the funny thing about it is this podcast got moved to today. It was supposed to be before now because the elevator was out.
Yeah.
I can't believe you didn't offer to carry me up the stairs.
Well, I mean, Wes, I'll be honest with you, my shoulders and my back.
See, I'm a big dude. You wouldn't want to try to carry me by yourself, right?
Yeah.
So just something, and I know that you run into liability issues on things like that.
Yeah.
But, if there's anybody out there that knows and or can help figure out how to get around those and how to get a team together, that could be, just call them, just a list of guys with numbers and that are willing to show up.
Yeah. I can touch on this a little bit because being a retired firefighter paramedic, we made a lot of lift assist calls. People that would, end up falling in the bed or whatever the case may be, couldn't get out of the bathroom. There's a million different scenarios on this, but we would get called out and we would just have to help them from one room to the next. Sometimes that would be all it would take. And it's not a problem. Never was a problem. It's not like that was a stress on us, but to that point, that is taking a fire truck out of service for a minute to help a person move from one room to the next. I reiterate, not that the firefighters ever mind. We don't mind that. That's not the point on this. The point is, though, if there's a fire that breaks out, now we're lift assisting somebody, which with what you're proposing would mitigate some of that, which I think is not a bad idea at all. I'm not necessarily the guy that could give you all the legal ramifications to something like this, but what I do know is there are way more good people on this earth than there are bad. There are plenty of people that do want to help and be a part of something that is needed. And where organizations can exist, oftentimes they will take off if the right people get involved. And so maybe this podcast lands in front of somebody and they see this and they're like, hey, I would like to start that type of organization. And how I could see that working is there being a list of individuals within each community. You have community watch programs. There's different types of programs out there that help individuals. When COVID came around back in 2020, I actually had the idea. I was like, there are a lot of elderly people and people that are high risk that do not need to be exposed to this virus. I'm a healthy young person. I would not mind going and getting groceries for an individual that does not want to risk getting out and getting exposed at the time. But that kind of falls in line with what you're saying, Wes, is that, there being a network of individuals that are within an area that whenever there's a need, they can be contacted, maybe a list of phone numbers, text messages. Look, there's a million different ways to contact people nowadays. Snapchat, if you're my daughter, I don't know. She's just got this natural and snaps are everywhere. So my point to it is I do see a need there. I do see a possibility of how that could look. I'm not that guy, but I hope that somebody out there sees this and they're like, hey, I know how to make that work. I want to put that together. We can make this a 501, boom. And then all of a sudden it's out there running. And this is not just an American thing. This is a worldwide thing, right? So people everywhere have traumatic injuries and then they find themselves in positions that they never thought they would be in. And now they need extra assistance at times. And I think that we all are better off when we work together to help one another. That's just my opinion, though.
Very true. I had that same situation happen to myself about 6 months ago. I was transferring and I wound up falling and broke my left leg. So here I am laying in the bathroom floor, but I got friends around the area. All I did was pick the phone up and call. Hey, can you come over real quick and grab one of your buddies? He was at his job and right here in town. And can y'all come put me back in my wheelchair? He's like, I'll be there in just a minute. So I crawled over to the back door, unlocked the back door, and he came in the back door and put me back in my chair. And I went to the doctor and he went back to work. Yeah.
I mean, and not everybody has that, right?
Right.
So that's the point, is that was a resource that you had that somebody out there may not have. Right. And so having a network of individuals that would be willing to help out, that would be phenomenal. Of course, there's the whole liability thing, which is why I'm I don't know how that would look, but there's a path. There's a path there, I think. So as we get close to finishing up here, Wes, and I thank you so much for coming on my show. I know that your story is going to hit in households all across the world. We are in 19 different countries now, if I haven't mentioned that. So is there anything you want to leave with my listeners? Last final thoughts?
Yeah, I would say try to be better than you were yesterday. Be a light for Christ and try to help any individual that you come across. Be kind, be nice to everyone because you never know what they're dealing with.
That's good.
We all deal with things and we may be perfectly smiling on the face and tore up inside. You just never know.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, to consider it pure joy when you have trials because, the testing of your faith provides perseverance. And that's James chapter 1, verse 2 and 3. So I would say, be a light for Christ. Stand out.
Yep. I think your positivity and approach to a bad situation, a tough situation, is that it is a shining light for Christ. And it does show others that, life changes, but it doesn't have to end. There's a path forward, and you're showing that, sir. And I do appreciate everything you've done. And coming on here and sharing your story is going to have a huge impact.
And I appreciate you inviting me on here. I've had a great time, and I loved every second of it. Now, the last thing I want to say is the intro music.
Yeah.
It's jamming.
Dude, I know. It gets me fired up.
It makes me want to get up and dance.
Bro, every time that I hear it come on, I'm like, I don't deserve that because that is some awesome music. Yeah, I wish I could say that I wrote it, but I didn't. So it was pulled off of the free YouTube. So, but thank you so much for that. And Wes, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, sir. I want to thank you, my listeners, for tuning in, for commenting, sharing, subscribing. Look, because of you, it makes this worth it all the time. If I was just in here talking to the wall, what's the point, right? But you guys make this thing move forward. My guests are amazing. All I am is just a vessel, a platform, a desk, and some cool lights and an amazing studio. But I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I ask you to continue to do that. Always check in with me. And until next time, Coach Camp out.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want, and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me.